All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Houston Rockets Daily, where we post daily Rockets content. If that's something you guys enjoy and you enjoy this video, hit the like button, hit that sub button for more. Last night, Kevin Porter Jr. didn't have like the best game. What do you have? 6 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, a block, 5 turnovers, 22.2% from the field, 20% from downtown. And I saw it on Twitter. I forget whose account it was, but I saw on Twitter a poll saying like, "Are you sick of the KPJ, or are you done with the KPJ at the one experiment?" And it had like 53% of people said yes. Like, majority of people to the tweet are done with Kevin Porter Jr. So like, my follow-up question would be like, all right, you're done with KPJ. Like, does that mean you want Daishen Nix to start out the rest of the season? Like, come on, let's be real here. No disrespect to Daishen Nix. He's a 5-star athlete, but like, Kevin Porter Jr., like, there's a reason we put him in the G League to play at the point guard position. Like, this isn't gonna just work overnight. Kevin Porter Jr. has played in about 65 games in his entire career in the last year and like 2 months maybe at the point guard position. Literally, he's played in like just barely over 60 games. So, you know, I'm all for Daishen Nix getting 22 minutes, however many minutes he got off of the bench. But I think people saying Daishen should start at the 1 and KPJ should go to the 3 for the rest of the season, I think these are getting a little absurd. Kevin Porter Jr. on this season isn't really having a great year. You know, I've seen a lot of stuff about people talking about maybe it's the coaching staff, maybe it's Stephen Silas, because, you know, Dennis Schroeder was acquired via trade in the Daniel Theis trade, and he, you know, he's injured right now, but when he has played for us, he's been like really inefficient. Obviously, you will have a game, or he's had a couple of games where he like balled his ass off, particularly the games he was starting in, but like, you can say the same things about Kevin Porter Jr. I mean, last night was definitely a dud. Like, 6 and 5 is not going to get the job done. But the night before against Dallas, I thought he shot 64%, he shot 43%, and he finished with 17 points, finished with 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. Game before that wasn't great. Only 10 points, shot really poorly, only shot 31% from the field, but he finished with 10 points, 8 rebounds, and 10 assists. So, if you're going to be struggling like last night, what I would have just liked more, but it was honestly the Houston Rockets offense in general, is like, if you're struggling to score, try and get more rebounds, try and get more assists, try and clamp up defensively, because your shot isn't falling. I mean, if the shot is not falling, you know, just try and do as much as you can out there in every other statistic. Try and set up your teammates, try and be in the right spots at the right time, try and make the right passes, the right reads. Game before that against Miami, I thought he had a good game, 22 points. Thing is, he had 5 rebounds, only 1 assist. At the same time, Houston isn't necessarily like the most efficient basketball team, particularly from 3. Like, we're one of the worst teams in the NBA as far as 3-point shooting is concerned. So, you know, keep that in mind. Game before that against the Grizzlies, you saw 29 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists. I believe that was the night where he dropped like 17 in the third quarter. So on this season, you're looking at, with Kevin, last year you were looking at almost 17 and 7, like, not exactly. You were looking at about like 16, 5 and 7 on pretty bad efficiency and like a lot of turnovers as well. This year you're looking at 13.8 points per game, 4.1 rebounds, 6 assists. He is shooting a lot better from downtown, but that's pretty much it. He's shooting 40% from the field, which is below his career average, shooting 37% from downtown, which is well above his career average of 34.5. The free throws are still at 59%, which, like, I was so surprised when I found out KPJ was shooting 59% from the free throw line. I was shocked. And then when I found out he's only a 67% free throw shooter, I was also shocked. So I don't really know what's going on. I don't know what it is, but he cannot make free throws, not only this year, but I guess just in his career in general. Then the turnovers are looking at 3.4 per game, which, like, I think you can live with. I think it's a number you can live with, because he'll have nights like, you know, last night he had 5, game before that he had 4, but the game before that he only had 1, game before that he had 0. So I want to start seeing more consistency. I would say that's really like my thing with Kevin, is I just want to see the consistency. When you look back and you remember kind of what we got him for, like a 7th grader and a bag of chips, when Cleveland was basically about to cut him. Like, there's no reason to not have Kevin Porter Jr. try and finish out the season strong, but I wouldn't complain one bit if the Houston Rockets were to draft somebody at the point guard position in this year's draft. I think they'll probably shy away from Dennis Schroeder in the offseason just because I think he'll want a little bit of money. The thing is, if you draft a point guard, is Daishen Nix going to play above him? Or, is Daishen Nix even worth playing above him? Like, we don't know. Like, Daishen Nix has played really well in the G League, and he's had a couple of solid games in the NBA. But I'm not, ready to be convinced he's just, the backup point guard of the future, or a possible point guard of the future. What's so great about KPJ is he can do so many different things. So, let's say the Rockets draft a point guard in college, or out of college this year in the draft, just because KPJ isn't going to be the starting one, and I'm not saying, their first pick, they would, whatever top 5 pick the Rockets have, I don't think they'll take a guard. You're not going to be drafting out of position, but I think this is a little bit more of a big man draft, as far as Jabari goes, as far as Chet goes, Paolo, I think the Rockets would try and get one of those 3 players. But the point I'm trying to get at here is, let's say Daishen Nix, or a player that we draft in this year's draft class, kind of breaks out at some point. KPJ either can move into a 6-man role, either as the point guard, as the shooting guard, as the small forward. He can do a multitude of different things. So, I'm just not worried really about KPJ because he's very versatile on offense. Defensively, that's where you run into a little bit more of the issues. I'm not saying he's a bad defender necessarily, but do you really want KPJ at the 3 spot? There's some bodies you're going to be guarding at that 3. You got to be prepared at that 3. You're Jason Tatum. Is KPJ really ready to, or is that who we want guarding guys like Jason Tatum? Obviously, you'd play around with the roster a little bit, but if you have a starting lineup of Daishen Nix, Jalen Green, KPJ, one of those 3 players is going to have to guard a guy like Jason Tatum. When you play a team like Boston, or even if you play the Pelicans, one of them is going to have to guard Brandon Ingram. They're not at those levels yet. So I'm all for KPJ being the point guard of the future, and I'm still hoping, and I'm obviously not getting too worried about it. But I wouldn't mind whatsoever if the Rockets were to try to find a nice little steal with that Brooklyn Nets pick at the guard position. So, that's it for today. KPJ isn't really that well liked right now in Houston. I feel like he's relatively underappreciated, actually. There was a lot of potential here, as we saw in the 15-11 game. So hit the like button, hit the sub button, but most importantly, drop a comment down below. What are your long-term thoughts on Kevin Porter Jr. being the point guard of the Houston Rockets?